Hello everyone, this is a brief tutorial about synthesis and cohesion. This will be useful for anyone writing academic writing, especially in a thesis, research writing. Uh, I use the term sticking together as our main focus because synthesis and cohesion is basically the glue that holds your writing together. This tutorial is based on a worksheet, which you can get by following the link provided there. You might need to type it in again if you're watching this as a video. But the worksheet goes through an introduction of what is cohesion, identifying it, and then applying it in your writing. So let's begin. So Roy Peter Clark gives a nice definition about cohesion. He says, when the big parts fit, we call that good feeling coherence. When sentences connect, we call it cohesion. And so throughout this section, we will talk about cohesion in terms of sentence level connections, sentence level organization, and references not coherence, which is how your larger piece of writing fits together from section to section. We can also say that cohesion gives readers the clues for discovering coherence. Again, cohesion is a small scale version of connections that help your reader understand the meaning of your writing. So you see in front of you the example from the worksheet. So if you have that resource, I recommend following it and perhaps pausing the video to do the tasks and come back to join the discussion about these examples. This first sample is a short text that has some cohesive elements, but that could really be improved. The text is about Captain James Cook, who's discovering Hawaii and goes to talk about these mountains, the mountains as well as the volcanoes. And so there is some repetition. For example, the major volcanoes, another mountain, words like another, words like also, shows some linking of ideas. But this could really be improved by using something we call the old new rule. So let me show that to you. So the new versus old, I've put here in green the new information. And our task here is to introduce new information only after presenting some reference to old information. So if I read this example, we know that in 1779, Captain James Cook is the first time we're presenting this. Yeah, you'll notice the first sentence is a lot of new information. You're introducing these ideas. He sailed into this bay, he discovered Hawaii. Then look in the next few sentences, as he entered the bay, we're now referring back to Captain James Cook with he. We're not giving the full name of the bay, we're just mentioning the bay. Did Cook notice the many mountains on the island? So many mountains is now something new we're introducing, but that's the only new information. The island is a reference to the island of Hawaii. Perhaps he noticed Mauna Kea, and here's a new piece of information, and the rest is repeated from before. We can also highlight words like as, perhaps, one of, and another. These are explicit linking words to show how the idea is either a repeated idea, this perhaps, perhaps, or it is another, or in addition. It's moving the conversation forward by listing. What I notice here is that every sentence gives a piece of old information before giving new information. Again, old information and then new information. So this is one really important technique that we can use to improve cohesion. Number two gives a few other examples. And so again, I recommend that you use your your ideas first. Go back and read this and think about it, and then come back and let's look at some improved ideas. This text is about a hotel, but it's also about an international dancing competition. And one of the problems with this text is that the focus of which one is more important is unclear. So the paragraph starts with the hotel is famous. It is one of the most well-known hotels. And then we talk about the international dancing competition. We go back and forth talking about the hotel and then talking about the event itself. So I would emphasize one or the other. We can improve cohesion by having a clear main idea. In this first improved example, we're focusing on the hotel. The hotel, which is one of the most well-known hotels in this region, wanted to promote its image by having this competition. Although the event was widely advertised, not many people participated. If hotels want to gain, right? If you continue this idea of focusing on hotels, this can be more clear. The next one is the same idea, so the same paragraph, but with a different focus. This one takes the importance of this dancing competition and shifts the focus to it. The hotel spent a lot of money, it wanted to enhance its reputation, however it failed to attract many people, events like these. So one of the things to keep in mind here is to keep your focus for each paragraph on a single clear idea before moving on to the next one. Next, here's an example of a wonderful IELTS type writing test, and it shows a tendency of our students to overuse the linking words to make cohesion. Our writers sometimes say, oh, if I use all the connecting words I know, like first, besides, therefore, moreover, it's cohesive, right? Unfortunately, this is not true. There are other ways that are much more effective, and writing like this is very repetitive. You'll notice the beginning of each sentence has the same connecting word structure. Also, a lot of the connecting words don't really help add any meaning to this writing. So this example that starts with first, teenage crime rate is increasing very fast. Besides, the age of criminals is going down. Therefore, this is a serious problem. Therefore, and besides, and first, we could probably omit all of them, right? Teenage crime rate is increasingly fast, and the age of criminals is going down. That's possible. This is a serious problem. You don't need therefore. And you can put emphasis on your ideas without the use of these overused transition words. So what are the other ways that we can promote cohesion? There are some ways such as repetition. So in this sample text, the key noun, the main focus of this topic is solids, right? And so the word solid has been used again and again. Many students think that using the same word a couple times in a paragraph is bad. You shouldn't overuse it, so that you should have variety in your writing. That's true, but when it is the main idea of your text, I think it is more helpful to repeat that word instead of finding different words for solids. Other ones are the use of demonstratives, such as these or those. Like these solids, the crystalline ones, connects back to a previous idea. And pronouns are a form of reference, where they is repeating something from before. You might not think of this when you use they or use a pronoun as a cohesive element, but it is. And you'll notice in this paragraph there are no linking words like transition words. And then What I think are maybe the most effective is a use of cohesive devices to signal relationships between ideas within the paragraph and between paragraphs. Things that show, on the other hand, and show the relationship between ideas, they can be very helpful if not overused. We're going to look at some examples of how we can combine elements of each of these to really improve our writing the most. So, what types of classification do we have? If you do some research on this, there's a lot of linguistic um, research that helps us to define exactly what types of cohesion there are. You don't need to know all the names of these categories, uh, but the idea is important that we have a variety, that we aren't overusing one or another. So we talked about repetition. Yeah? Linguistics might call this lexis, synonyms and repetition of words. By building and repeating the same word, you make it clear that that is your main idea. Conjunctions, connecting ideas within a sentence, and, or, but, yet, these connect ideas within one sentence. Reference is what we just mentioned with determiners, as this and that. Pronouns, so it and they, and comparisons, more than and less than. Refer to a previous idea. Ellipsis is an omission of understood words. We won't talk about this one too much. But metanouns is one of the more important ones. Metanouns are metaverbs. When you talk about a problem, when you talk about an issue, when you say this section presents an analysis of. By talking about presenting an analysis, you're talking about yourself as an author and what you are doing. How are you discussing and understanding a concept? Talking about your ideas. And the last one is substitution, using the ones or the same instead of repeating a word from before. So let's look at a few examples of these and how some variety of these different categories can improve cohesion. This is a student example that they have color-coded, and I thought this was a brilliant way, so I'm sharing their hard work with you. The issue of large or overcrowded classes and the impact this situation can have on teaching and learning also needs consideration. We have a lot of great meta-nouns going on that we're talking about. This is an issue that we need to talk about. This is a situation and it needs consideration. These words are meta-nouns or meta-verbs. This needs consideration. Is the author talking about the problem and how it is represented in this work? We also have conjunctions, just connecting words, so also, according to, and thus, but they don't overwhelm the reader. If you look through at Lexis, you see our main idea is overcrowded classes. So when we use large classes, we're using the same idea: class size, class of 24, large classes. We are talking about the teaching and learning environment, so teaching and the size of class. We are repeating the main ideas throughout the writing. And then reference, this initiative is referring back to something that was just previously given. I find this to be one of the most effective connection that you can give. When this author says, according to this state standard, the class with 24 or more students is divided into 2 groups. This initiative is favorable. We don't need to say, furthermore, this is favorable. We don't need to connect it with some connection language. We just need to explain it. So restate what you're talking about, this initiative. And we are also using this is also a meta-noun. You're describing this type of idea, this initiative of the government is favorable and lets you explain. So why is it favorable? Why is it better? So you have a chance to give your analysis and synthesis. At the same time, you are linking your ideas carefully between each section. So now let's look at applying these ideas. So we want to remember, I'm going to pause and review a little bit. If your ideas are incoherent, no amount of cohesive linking will fix it. So the first point is to make your ideas very, very clear. Don't rely on transition words like however, therefore, to link your ideas if the ideas themselves are not logically connected. So don't overuse transitions. That's clear. That's a common mistake and it's easy to fix. Just take them out and see if you really need them. If you want to improve on them, try to use these meta nouns and this reference where you link back to a previous idea or talk about what you're doing. This idea, this debate, or this problem can really push your ideas forward, describe your analysis process. And then repetition of keywords can be a good thing. Don't get stuck thinking that you cannot use the same word twice in one sentence. If it is your main idea, you should be using that same word again, maybe in synonyms, maybe different words, but keep a focus on your main idea. So the last task is about these examples. That's a 3-paragraph text that has been improved in a variety of ways. So the original is above, and I'll go through some improvements to it. Again, do the worksheet first, and then come join us for this discussion. For this first one, I would recommend adding some meta nouns and adding a couple transition words. So a sole proprietorship and a general partnership are 2 forms of business ownership. They're not just forms, but we're organizing the fact that this whole discussion is about these 2. And so when we introduce the number 2, we can go back to say both and really emphasize how they are forming a position, that this discussion has a shape, that there are 2 sides to this issue, and then we can add in contrast and also simple changes. The next one, paragraph 2, has more about the same. This is a continuation from the first, and with the main ideas highlighted. How can we improve it? We can add in some transition words, of course, however, on the other hand, furthermore, whereas, and major differences here is our emphasis that we are talking about 2 contrasting ideas. The third paragraph is much of the same, and the reference that this resource comes from is focusing on developing good, consistent use of these transition words. And so they can be helpful, but you'll notice it's not in every single sentence, and it's not always at the beginning of the sentence. This is a great example of how, however, does not need to be at the beginning of a sentence. Both types of businesses, comma, however, are terminated in the same way. And so we have some connection of the ideas, not just in linking words, but also using some of these meta structures. So the final one is an example. I don't believe this is in the worksheet, but it is helpful to see some variety in these. So you can pause this video and read for yourself. And what I would say is that this text has a nice variety of all these different things we talked about. So I'm going to jump to some highlighted points in this while we go over it. So in the past, opponents of immigration raised economic, racial, religious, and nationalistic objections or questions about large-scale immigration to the United States. This objections and questions is emphasized because it is showing a main idea that we are building on. If you'll look forward into the other highlighted examples, opposition is a form of objection, and reason for that objection, and the widespread concern is a form of objection. So in our first sentence, we have a clear topic that then is repeated throughout the other sentences. Yeah, and so this is a nice way to emphasize your main idea. I like the use of however here embedded in the sentence. There are other transitions, like for example, and in the same economic vein, we're linking ideas about how this sentence connects to the previous one. We also are drawing connections about how Dan Lacey's text is similar and perhaps different from Thomas Mueller's. Yeah, so I hope that this shows some ways of balancing cohesive language without overwhelming the reader. So I'd like you to think about any questions or comments you have about your writing. If you are in a course right now, ask your professors. If you are working with a peer, talk about your writing with your peer. Share and ask questions and get comments about your writing and how you can improve cohesion in your text. Just as a final review, there is a great resource from Monash University called Linking Main Points. And you can find it on their website. That goes through other examples similarly explained to these examples. And the key ideas from this presentation were that uh, you should have a clear purpose in every paragraph. So check your writing, make sure that that is clear. Check that every paragraph connects to the topic of the section, and check that every paragraph has a topic sentence that clearly relates its topic with the previous one. So this starts to build into the idea of coherence. So on a paragraph level, on a paragraph level, each sentence should connect with cohesion. These repetitive nouns, these transition words, these meta nouns, and reference, where our paragraph should also be connecting to the larger purpose of the text, and that the purpose and the connection is clear from one topic to the next, from one paragraph to the next. So I hope that you found this helpful, and come back for other tutorials like this in the future.